My name is Lawrence Daniel Harris, more commonly known as Danny. I'm 79 years of age and I'm a retired dairy farmer. I guess my connection is that I've lived here all my entire life. Initially our family farmed in the Waterloo district, which is part of Dardanup. For the first 8 years that's where I lived, but then moved from there to what's more commonly known as Crooked Brook when my father bought another farm, and have lived there ever since. The privilege of being a dairy farmer allowed me to have space in my life that I could actually be involved in many things in our community. I go back to when my children were still going to school and our little Catholic primary school almost closed with 38 kids. Today it's got nearly 250 and I was the one who did most of the work to save that. I guess I've always been involved in sport. Football was my real game. I unfortunately fractured my femur when I was only 18 and all the other kids could beat me in a race, so I had to give up. But I've stayed involved in many things. Certainly as I went forward, I became a councillor and followed in the footsteps of a number of my family over the years. And I've had 2 7-year terms, but at one period in the early 90s I was Shire President. But I've also been Deputy Chair to the South West Development Commission, and I've had a little quiet interest in politics. Some 100 men enlisted from Dardanup in the First World War. The interesting thing was that 2 of those were my uncles. One was a great uncle, Joseph Thomas Harris, and the other one was an uncle, William Herbert Harris. Joseph Thomas Harris was a son of the first Thomas Harris who came to Western Australia and to Dardanup as a convict. So in that period I never really got to meet him, and he died at the age of 55 years in 1941. So I never ever really had a direct personal attachment to him. I found it more difficult to find out from other people history about him, but I'm told that he acted as a labourer in his early years before he went to war, and when he came back he was injured and he really never recovered, but I'm told also that he continued along with labouring. Joseph Thomas Harris sailed to Egypt and he fought in Gallipoli, but he was injured. He was injured by shrapnel in his back and his abdomen, and he spent time in a hospital in Egypt for quite some time, and then eventually came back. He tried to carry on, enrolled as or enlisted, but his health would not allow that to happen. So he was discharged a couple of years after he came home. I can only believe that he may never have really recovered to get back to full life, and so he died in 1941. My uncle William Herbert Harris was from the next generation and a brother to my father. I knew him really well. He was very much part of our life and the Dardanup community life. He was just a basic farmer, took over part of his father's farm in the Waterloo district, and he used to be a horseman, and he would take the family's livestock to a property that his father owned on the coast, just on the other side of the Australind estuary, and he would swim them across the water that flowed down to Campana Bay in Bunbury, and they would go there for their winter respite, and it was quite amazing. And they used to go through Eton, and as I grew up, I actually followed with my father in a ute behind him and watched that process. It was quite amazing. He was, before the war, but certainly after the war, he came back. He was always a quiet man. He was a gentle person. He engaged just gently with the community, but he also was on the roads board.
Sorry, just pick up from, he was a gentleman?
Yeah. He was a gentleman in the community, and he also served on the Dardanup Roads Board for many years, more years than what I could count. And that's how he delivered back to his community. Never asked for anything, never expected anything, but we as young children that were close to him used to just love the time that he would spend with us, because he always would stop and have some time with us. Well, I believe he enlisted voluntarily, and he enlisted in Bunbury, and so that's the man that he was, and a very quiet person. So you never really got into his head to find out why, but I think it was all about servicing his country, and I think that was something special, and I believe that was how most of our people served their country, by going overseas. He went to Egypt as well, and he was in the Camel Corps, and I read that it was the single hump camels, and they used to take the goods and the armament to people on the front line, and then later they switched that whole group to the Light Horse Corps. And he served in the Egypt area, where a lot of those battles of Beersheba and all that took place. And he never used to talk about it, but that's what he did. I guess the two uncles, not knowing as much about Joseph, but certainly Uncle Bert, as I know William Herbert, he was always just part of the community. I can remember when I was a child and my little sister, because I'm from a family of 9 and I'm number 8, and my youngest sister, we would sit in the car outside the Dardanup Hotel while Uncle Bert and my father and his other 2 brothers would love a beer and a chat on Saturday morning. And Uncle Bert used to always come out, and you could see him fossicking in his pocket, and he would find 2 threepences and give one each to each of us, and he would say, "Go buy yourselves an ice cream." That's the sort of person that he was, and that's why we as young people loved him so much, just so much. He wasn't anybody out of the box, but just a very caring and special person. And I talk amongst the community, and it's surprising to people of my age and young and older that also respect him for his genuine value, particularly when we got to know him after the war. As Uncle Bert got older and I experienced him more, he still had the interest in the property that we used to call the coast. And he took my brother Brian and a friend of ours, Joe Italiano, who still lives in Dardanup, across on a little boat to the Land Peninsula on the other side of the Australind Estuary, and to clean out the water holes.
2 clean-away trucks going past each other.
So I start again from there?
Two.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Yeah, so he took my brother.
Start from Uncle William there, start from the beginning.
Oh, right from the beginning.
Yeah, please, sorry.
My Uncle Bert used to still stay involved in what we called the coast, and he took my brother Brian and another friend, Joseph Italiano, across to clean out water holes with buckets. And they went across in a little boat with a motor on the back, and they started cleaning out the water holes along the edge of the estuary. And Uncle Bert took his long trousers off, and he put the trousers on a log and used an axe to cut the legs out of them so he could get into the ponds to be able to assist. And I've never forgotten that. I've thought that was just the man he was, always there. I was probably too young to experience the First World War. I wasn't even born then, or even the Second World War, too young. I was only a year old. But I have watched the other wars since, and we've had people of a similar age to me. I missed by about 6 months to go into Vietnam. And I know many of those young people from here, and the same thing, they did not get the recognition and the love and care that they deserved. And because that has occurred, and I've watched it happen right across Australia, that belated responses and recognition was given. And I guess that's where I'm at. I'm finally starting to realise what they have sacrificed for us coming back to Dardanup. Dardanup was a dairy industry area, and I can say, looking back, very much tied down to 7 days a week. So socialising and some of those experiences of freedom didn't exist. But today we've found ways to intermix our community and then have the time to pay that respect. And I think it's being done beautifully in Dardanup now. Well, as I've got older, I see the reason why it should be commemorated. Those men and women, I really highlight that because there's about 30 names that I've got on the World War II that were there also assisting and helping and caring for our soldiers. We need to, and I've learnt that we need to respect. They have given us the most privileged life that we could ever expect to have. Now, had they not held their ground, and all those who stayed in Australia, likewise, they were there to deal with anything that might have come our way. And I think they didn't get the recognition that they deserved. But today, I find that our Anzac Day in Dardanup has become a very special day, and it's growing, and I think the care and the respect is now being shown. Well, over the last few years, there's been a great effort made to improve this site, and what we've achieved is the soldier on top of the memorial, which I think is just delightful. But following on from there, we also have a rammed earth wall that the Diggers Club from Waterloo have built, and they are placing the names of their members who have passed on. They were not necessarily people from Dardanup, but they're people who have lived in our community, and probably a lot from Eton. So that's been here now for a couple of years. And more recently, I worked with Darren Foster, and he discovered all the names of those who enlisted from the Dardanup area, Dardanup, Ferguson, Wellington Mills, Waterloo, all those places. And he's come up with 100 names of those who enlisted in World War I, and 330, including about 30 women, which I think is just delightful that we've also finally recognised. So we've gone on and done the other three more minor wars, Borneo and Korea and Vietnam. Still more names I think that we need to find, but I've been privileged enough to carry the debate and work with our Dardanup Heritage Collective to achieve. I've now got the rammed earth wall in place, and within the next week we'll have all the board plaques with all those names placed on that. So that'll be specially, I suppose, opened, you might say, on Anzac Day this year. So I'm really looking forward to that.